What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to another episode of NBA Weekly. I'm your host, Pee Wee the Plug, 1/4 through the wire, #1 Knicks fan in the world, aka Mr. Know-It-All. And in today's episode, we have to talk about John Wall. John Wall and the Houston Rockets, as we found out yesterday, have agreed to, I don't even want to say part ways because they aren't parting ways as of now, but they've agreed to find a way to move John Wall. And in the meantime, working together and having an understanding. So they basically agreed to see eye to eye. You know what I mean? And they figured out the way they want to go forward in their marriage. And simply, John Wall is going to be a part of the roster for the foreseeable future. He's going to be participating in training camp in the next coming weeks. But he will not play on the floor. And he is being told that they're going to try to move him if they can. So that's good to hear, because I think all of us understand that marriage there, it just doesn't make much sense for where John Wall is in his career and everything that he's been through recently to get to this point to be able to play and possibly contribute, and the current status of the Houston Rockets after they just had 4 first-round picks in this past draft, plus Kevin Porter Jr. that they have, Kenyon Martin Jr., Jason Tate was an all-rookie player last season, Christian Wood. So you have a young, up-and-coming core, and to have a guy like John Wall in the way that he plays, it will probably be smart to not have him be in the way of some of those guys as they develop. I think it is important to figure out if Kevin Porter Jr. can be the starting point guard in your backcourt with Jalen Green, seeing how they work with Christian Wood in the front court, figuring out where Jason Tate fits, Kenyon Martin Jr., Josh Christopher, what he can bring off the bench. Is Alperen Sengun starting with Wood? Is he backing him up? Usman Garuba. There's a lot going on that they need to figure out with these young guys so they can put them in the proper position to develop and ultimately become one of the next best young cores that the game has to offer. But with John Wall being on the floor, he can help certain things, no doubt about it. But he definitely will also stunt some of the development, because if you now have John Wall playing, that's a key position in the point guard position that he's going to fill up minutes on. And you want those minutes to go to somebody like Kevin Porter Jr. for him to really develop. Because with John Wall on the floor, there's no reason to have John Wall on the floor if he's not going to be the guy running your offense, calling the shots, and making the decisions, because that's what he does best. No matter what team I am, I don't want John Wall on the floor for my team and he's not calling the shots. That's something that John Wall has always done well, is running offense. He's never been an elite three-point shooter, though he did get better gradually throughout the course of his career, which opened up more of the game for him. He had elite speed, downhill attacking and finishing ability, probably the greatest shot-blocking point guard that I've ever seen. But more importantly, John Wall was the guy that got other players paid. He was known to get players paid in his prime in Washington, because he can run an offense. Him in a pick and roll with a lob threat and corner shooters is hell for an opposing defense, and is why some of those Washington teams that he led with Bradley Beal sometimes overexceeded or overachieved in the Eastern Conference. You can say it's because the Eastern Conference was weaker at the time, but I think those teams were a little bit more deadly because they had a guy like John Wall that kind of made you pick your poison. You know what I mean? If you're guarding prime John Wall coming off a pick and roll with a Marcin Gortat, who at the time wasn't an elite big, but he was good enough to hold it down. He was a guy that can get you a double-double. Off the pick and roll, John Wall can spoon feed him, as my man D Mills would say. And then you have a Trevor Ariza in one corner. You have an Otto Porter in the other corner. And then you have a bucket and Bradley Beal. And then you have John Wall, who's going downhill at you 100 miles per hour, the fastest point guard in the league at that time. He can dunk on you. He can do spinning layups. He can pass out of the air. He can throw lobs. And then defensively, he was aggressive, can put pressure on you. He's big with size compared to the other point guards. So that was a little trip down memory lane, speaking on John Wall and those Washington teams. But those are the things that John Wall has always been able to do. And I think even now, at the stage of his career that he's in, what is John Wall, 31, 32, coming off some crazy tough injuries. You know, we had a period of time where we didn't see John Wall play basketball for years, plural. But even now, after all of that, I still think for a proper team, the right fit, the right team, John Wall can still offer you those same things. Is John Wall coming off the pick and roll and exploding and dunking on you like he used to? No, but I still think he can be an above average finisher. I think the passing and finding the corner shooter and even being a lob passer or reading defenses, I think that hasn't changed at all. Is he the fastest guy in the league? No, but I still think he's still above average as far as speed and applying pressure and transition. And then what remains to be seen is the games played. How much will John Wall be there for you if you acquire him? And also John Wall playing next to an elite or a couple of elite scorers. Can John Wall be effective while another guy is getting his? So for me, I want to say this before we get into those really, really quick side thing. Some of the problems and issues with what we talked about earlier as far as the Rockets agreeing to move him is the $91 million that he's owed over the next 2 years. $44 million this year, $47 next year on the player option that he's obviously not going to turn down. Why would he turn down $47 million? He's probably never going to get that amount of money again in the NBA. They don't want to buy it out. And anytime you have a contract that you don't want to buy out, that automatically tells you that it's going to probably be hard to move because you don't want to buy it out yourself. So what makes you think another team would want to take it on? The other problem to that is the fact that we're approaching training camp in like a week and a half. So when you're this close to the season and so fresh from free agency, a lot of teams are kind of set in stone. Teams have new acquisitions that they've made over the summer. Nobody's really seen their team to know what they need or what they want unless it's glaring. And a lot of the money has been spent and used already. And then when you think about that and how fresh it is, guys still got to meet 30 to 60-day thresholds or 90 days to be traded or moved. And then when you talk about John Wall's $91 million contract over the next couple of years, again, in order to bring that on, there are some things that you need to know. So there are some teams that I like for John Wall personally, but I can't dive into trades or anything. I'm going to let y'all do that. So y'all put together all of y'all trade packages because I've already seen some of y'all on Twitter talking about it. Y'all can drop them in the comments. If we have enough good ones or bad ones, I'll react to them. But please make sure that they on point and that they make sense. Because some of the Ben Simmons trades, I was reading the comments and they were saying some of y'all trades wasn't right. So be a little bit more better. But anyway, I see all that to say I have teams that I like for them, but I don't have any packages because it's hard to see what teams will gauge as far as their own talent and then John Wall. So, for example, one of the teams I like for John Wall would be the Clippers. Makes sense. They've had a point guard void and point guard hole since they've acquired Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. As far as true point guard, like Patrick Beverly was on the roster. It's not much of a true point guard. They had Rondo. That shit didn't really work out like I thought or like anybody thought. And even now, going into the season, they have like Reggie Jackson, but he played more of a scoring guard. And recently, they acquired Eric Bledsoe. My personal belief, I would rather have John Wall over Eric Bledsoe. That's just me. But the thing is, for the Clippers and for myself, if even in that circumstance, is John Wall worth having over Eric Bledsoe, considering a contract? If Eric Bledsoe is going to be more consistent or steady as far as being available. If John Wall is only going to be able to give you 40 games like he did last year with the Rockets, and I know that 40 games has a bit of an asterisk around it because at a certain point, They shut down John Wall because they weren't trying to be competitive, and you know what I mean. They were just like, "Yo, we'll sit you," and they did that with a lot of the players, and it worked out. They got the second overall pick, so he may have been able to play more teams had he been on play more games had he been on a more competitive team. You know what I mean? When you're on a losing team like the Rockets were last year, and you're a veteran player, they rest you and sit you over knick-knack things that you probably could play through. But because they're trying to lose anyway, it's easier to sit you and you understand and y'all go forward. But on the Clippers, maybe if John Wall can play 65 games, 60-plus games, and if Eric Bledsoe isn't giving you anything or really isn't pushing the needle, then I would take John Wall. But the thing about that is his contract, again, which is big. So for a team like the Clippers, they have to think that John Wall is a big enough upgrade to where they would trade not only Bledsoe, but then you would have to incorporate a Luke Kennard or Serge Ibaka. And again, we go to the training camp thing. Training camp is approaching. How the fuck would the Clippers know how valuable Eric Bledsoe is to them? Or how much of an upgrade is John Wall over Eric Bledsoe? Because we haven't even put him on a court yet. The Rockets aren't going to play John Wall, so we're not going to know what he looks like. We only have the past 40 games we saw last year where he did average 20 and 7, but we have to take in consideration that it was on the Houston Rockets. And now this is where it becomes a little sticky, and it's tricky because it makes me think, is John Wall going to be moved? Like, it was a big headline of news that they came to this agreement, but when I look at the Rockets, I'm kind of like, yo, what are y'all going to do? Y'all saying y'all agreeing with him to trade him. I get where y'all coming from to let the youngins play. I'm fully with that. But y'all might as well just buy him out, man. Y'all might as well buy him out. Y'all don't need the cap room for anything else because you're not signing anybody anytime soon. I'll just let you know that right now. You're not signing anybody anytime soon. And there's only a handful of teams that can bring him. OKC has the cap because all they have is young players, so they could really just trade Derek Favors and maybe another small contract, and boom, they could take him. But again, they just bought out Kemba Walker. So why would they buy out? If they were going to do this route for a full season, they would have kept Kemba Walker. So they're not going to do it because you're probably not going to give up a pick to give up John Wall. They've already kind of said that they don't want to give up a pick to move John Wall. And the Rockets came out and said that they want to make sure whatever deal that they do, that they feel like they're necessary, that they won the trade. And I think that that's a bit ludicrous because I just don't think that John Wall is in a position as a player where you're trying to necessarily win a trade. Don't think that that's the position he's in. And it's coming off of the James Harden thing where a lot of the press and media was talking about the Rockets and what they got back, and they could have gotten more, they should have did better, and blah, blah, blah. So now they're saying because they have John Wall, they want to make sure that they do something smart with it and that they win the trade. And I just don't think that that's out there right now. You know what I mean? I really don't think that that's out there because when I look at the landscape, like I said, it's going to take a minute for a team like the Clippers to know if they really should go out and try to get John Wall. Because if you're going out and getting John Wall, you're committing to bringing on $91 million over the next 2 years. So that means Eric Bledsoe would have to be completely just not doing it for them. And they would have to be okay with giving up Serge Ibaka or Luke Kennard. And it's tough to picture that, even though I think personally, just from production-wise, if I had, with the current Clippers team, no cap concerns, anything, and I had to choose Eric Bledsoe or John Wall, I personally would want John Wall. Me personally. Some of y'all may want Eric Bledsoe, whatever. I personally think John Wall could take you to a different status. Another team, probably my favorite. I would just love to see this. Not saying it would work. Not saying it's the best thing, but I think it's better than what they have. The New Orleans Pelicans. I think that's the perfect place for John Wall. Perfectly. I mean, honestly, personally, in my opinion. Again, I'm not saying he elevates them to anything crazy, but I think that's the role that I would want to see John Wall in and entering this last run of his career. where you have Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram. I personally would have Brandon Ingram a little closer to Zion, but I know the Pelicans have Zion as their #1 guy or face. And then you have John Wall, and then you have other talent around it, where there's Nickeil Alexander-Walker, there is Jonas Valanciunas. Off the bench, you would have a Josh Hart, Devontae Graham, Kira Lewis can come up under John Wall, learn some things from him. You still got Jackson Hayes off that bench too, who has some type of potential. There will be some things there that you could work with. I would like that. Now, there are also some cons to that. How does John Wall be effective during a Brandon Ingram isolation? It's to be seen. I don't know. But you can say the same thing for the current point guard, because I don't even know who the current point guard is going to be. Devontae Graham maybe start in the point guard position, but Devontae Graham, in my eyes, isn't a point guard. He's going to be a floor spacing guard who can shoot it. And he'll complement Zion, Brandon Ingram for kickouts and space. And I'm not sure if he'll even start. And if he doesn't start and you start Kira Lewis can shoot the ball a little bit, but he's still not proven enough to say that he's going to be ideal. And I'm not sure if he's ready to be a starting point guard for what the Pelicans are trying to do. They want to compete for a playoff spot. I think that's the ideal fit for John Wall, where he's like your third guy. Not even like necessarily third scoring option, but he's just like the third guy, where you have Brandon Ingram, who's an incredible scorer. You have Zion Williamson, who's a freak of nature and scores with the God-gifted abilities that he has. And then you have a veteran point guard like John Wall, who you're not putting too much responsibility on him to run him down into the ground. You don't need him to carry a team. You just need him to do all of the things he used to do back then, but just to a lesser degree, right? So John Wall, he don't need to average 20 points now with the Pelicans. We just need about 14, 15, even 16. Because I know you're going to take shots, John Wall. Give us in the teens and still give us 7, 8 assists on any given night. Be a double-double option. Guard solid defense. Be a veteran presence. Hey, the Rockets spoke highly of John Wall as a leader and a veteran last year in that locker room. Said he was a much-needed presence. A lot of positive things that come out about John Wall as far as how he's handling this. No fight at all. I understand what y'all doing. And they say it speaks volumes that he even is still trying to show up to training camp, knowing he's not going to play. Just shows you what type of mindset and headspace that he's in. This isn't a disgruntled guy who still doesn't understand the realism or the reality of where he's at in his career. So I would love to see him on a young Pelicans team who's trying to run up the speed, be a little bit more competitive, more easy baskets for a Zion Williamson, more easy baskets for a Brandon Ingram. Like I said, John Wall is always going to be a playmaker. That's just who he is. The natural things that made him elite are dipped down a little bit. He's not going to dunk on you and cross you over and go. That's gone. But still coming off a pick and roll and being able to make plays out of that constantly is still there. It's still there. It was in the film in Houston, just that the team was shit. You know what I mean? He played with a James Harden who didn't want to be there. He played 4 games with Victor Oladipo. Victor Oladipo got hurt. The next thing you know, he's in Miami. Christian Wood was in and out of the lineup. The rest of the guys, John Wall probably didn't even know who they were. No disrespect to those guys. They were newer. Kenyon Martin Jr., he probably knew Kenyon Martin Jr. because he knows Kenyon Martin. But I don't think he was familiar with Kenyon Martin Jr., the player, as a rookie coming out of IMG. Doubt he was familiar with him. Jayshawn Tate, doubt he was familiar with him. Eric Gordon and out of the lineup. I can't even remember the other guys that were on the team. I would love to see John Wall with the Pelicans. I would love to see it happen. My only thing is that I'm trying to figure out, how does it happen? Because where does the Pelicans, where do they make $41 million pop up and exist to go and acquire John Wall? So my question to not only you guys or to myself, but to the Houston Rockets, what are we doing? Just like I said with the Ben Simmons video, we have a Ben Simmons dilemma. We have a John Wall and Houston Rockets dilemma. Because I don't see how he can be moved without them just buying him out. The Pelicans can't make $41 million appear. I'm seeing people talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. They're not trading Ben Simmons for John Wall. You don't go from Harden for Ben Simmons to Damian Lillard to Ben Simmons to John Wall for Ben Simmons. It's not happening. Don't know. The Lakers got Russ. The Thunder don't need John Wall. If they were going to go down that route, they would have kept Kemba. The Knicks now have Kemba. The Bulls now have Lonzo. The Celtics went and got Schroeder for $5 million. Why the fuck would they bring John Wall for 40? Dear Houston Rockets, buy out John Wall. Please and thank you. As always, I'm the host of NBA Weekly, Pee Wee the Plug. Like I said, let me know some of your John Wall packages. I've seen y'all already get started. Y'all send me some DMs. Put them in the comments. If there's enough of them, I'll maybe react to them. John Wall, if you see this video, brother, I'm wishing you nothing but the best. I want to see you with the Pelicans, and I hope you get a chance. This is a mess. It's a mess. You want to trade a guy that you're not going to play and that you don't want to buy out. I don't know. I don't know. Thank y'all for watching. I'll see y'all next video. Peace.